So today I'm heading out to a rare sunset location here in Banff National Park. Now, the Canadian Rockies is primarily a sunrise location. That's when the light tends to be best and when lakes tend to offer the best reflections. For easy access lakeside photography, sunrise is really where it's at. Sunset, however, is a lot more limited. I normally find that during sunset, a lot of those common locations just don't work as well. The sun has a bit of a habit of dipping behind nearby peaks before it starts showering the landscape in that golden light, and those lakes tend to still be rippling more from the warmth of the day. Normally, to maximise sunset, I think you need to be on top of a mountain. You normally need to slog up some steep terrain to get a better vantage point. However, there are a couple of locations in the Banff area that work really well for sunset. Locations that are easily accessed by car without getting out the hiking poles. And today, I'll show you one of those locations. So, I just drove all the way down the Bow Valley Parkway to get here, rather than taking the main highway, all in the hopes of seeing some wildlife. But the only thing I actually saw was a squirrel. And as is often the case, when you're looking for wildlife, you don't see any. The other day I was out on a walk and we actually saw bighorn sheep and a bald eagle, and I didn't take my camera with me and I didn't take that lens with me. And that's probably the best wildlife I've seen in the last couple of weeks, but just how it goes, I suppose. But we are at our first sunset location, actually, on the Bow Valley Parkway. And it might be a scene that you recognise if you've come to the Rockies, or you may very well have seen pictures of this place in the past, but it's just over the other side of the road. So this is, of course, the very impressive Castle Mountain. And you get this absolutely perfect view of it from the Bow Valley Parkway here. You get that sweeping road that kind of winds left and right straight towards the mountain with a perfect gap in the trees. And at this time in the evening, you get some beautiful, beautiful golden light all over Castle Mountain. And a little bit of a hot tip for you is that it's actually about an hour before sunset right now. And I've come at that time for a couple of reasons. One, because this is when it gets the lights right. You don't actually want to wait until the official kind of golden hour, which might start in kind of half an hour's time, because at that point, a lot of the sun has dipped behind the mountains kind of in the distance. So right now, an hour before sunset, we're getting some brilliant light on the mountain itself. And also there is one other location I want to go to shoot this same mountain from as well, just down the road. So fingers crossed I can kind of get both. And right now you might have already noticed that I've set my camera up with a 70 to 200mm lens, because you're going to want to get a nice long focal length on this shot to get that kind of compression and get the road leading in and the mountain looking a bit larger. I'm probably going to end up shooting it around 100mm or even tighter, to be honest with you. And I'm going to go for a portrait style shot on this one as well, and it's a little bit standard, to be honest with you. This is kind of the standard shot from this area, but it's a good one. And I'm going to shoot it portrait with a longer length, compress that road in, and then I think we'll try some slightly more unique compositions after that. Not sure if you can see Castle Mountain in the background of this shot, but what I'm trying to do now is actually use some of these kind of bushes, some of these trees as a little bit of a frame to kind of dirty the foreground, they'd call it. So just really getting in there handheld, still with that longer lens, 70 to 100mm, and trying to find a little gap in the trees where I can hopefully see the mountain, maybe even the road, and get a little bit of framing with the foliage around the outside, kind of getting rid of some of the sky, which doesn't have too much going on in it. When you come to spots like this as a landscape photographer, it's really easy just to set up on a tripod and kind of stay put. But sometimes it is best just to go handheld and see what other stuff you can get. With in-body image stabilization inside cameras nowadays, you really can't go too far wrong shooting handheld at even quite low shutter speeds. So not a bad couple of images to start off this little sunset photography session here in Banff National Park. But we need to move on. We need to move on to the next location just down the road because we probably only have about 20 minutes of good light left. So I've made it down here to Castle Junction. That's kind of the famous spot to shoot Castle Mountain from here in the Rockies. And the light's fading pretty quickly. I think it's going to be gone in about 15 minutes. And you might be able to tell by the amount of cars behind me. There's 5 or 6 in this lay-by. I think it's going to be pretty busy down here. But as always, I've left it a little bit last minute. I got a bit carried away with filming. So we haven't got long to shoot before that light disappears. It's always a really tough location to shoot this place because there's this weird perspective of Castle Mountain is large and looming, like visually to your eyes. But once you get a camera out, it actually becomes quite small. So especially because you're going to end up wanting probably to shoot a wide angle lens, right, to get kind of cool foregrounds in. And all along the shorefront here right now, there's little ice formations, there's bits of kind of green algae and seaweed and reflections in certain pools a little bit further back from the river. But to get that all in is really difficult. And you often have to get really, really low to get that kind of ice in. And actually it's so low that I can't use my tripod at the moment because it just won't go low enough. So I'm trying some relatively sketchy handheld focus stacking. And hopefully some of that will turn out pretty nice, but we will see what happens. So that was a little bit hectic as I just arrived here. Should have arrived a little bit earlier if I'm honest, but got a bit distracted filming just down the road. But we got a couple of those kind of wider angle shots, a couple of reflections. There's lots of nice little pools here, but now it's actually a busy little spot in the evenings because it is one of the few kind of good sunset spots in the Rockies, to be honest with you. And a lot of these pools had people kind of queuing up next to them to take reflection shots underneath. So again, it's another reason really to run around a little bit more handheld and just you can kind of run in, do a bit of a dodgy focus stack with the touch screen, and then hopefully fix it in post to some degree. But it means you can be quicker, right? You can just kind of jump in and be like, oh, can I take a quick shot and get out the way if people are set up with tripods and everything. And I finally found a little use for the 600mm lens that I've been carrying around with me all day as well. Just the light on top of Castle Mountain was beautiful just earlier on. There's a little bit of warm pink over to the right hand side now still, but it kind of, the sun dips behind the mountains behind us just a little bit before sunset itself, so you miss kind of maybe the best light on Castle Mountain. But using the longer lens, I was zooming right in and getting some of that nice light on the peaks at the top for a completely different type of composition. But nice to have it in the bag for that sort of stuff. So the majority of the photographers have now left, but you might be able to see here, there's a little bit of pink coming into the sky here. So I'm going to stick around a little bit longer. You can see Castle Mountain is just there. And just here, we've got one of those reflection pools that everyone was kind of crowding around earlier on. So I'm going to set myself up for a kind of really low shot here, I think, just in case that cloud comes in. And even though the light's gone off Castle Mountain itself, if the sky lights up and there's a little bit of hazy pink in the sky, if that lights up, this could be a nice little shot just to end the evening with. So I think I've definitely said it on other videos, but it's always worth hanging around a little bit after the kind of sun goes down. It's actually kind of 5 or 10 past 5 and sunset today was at 5 o'clock, and I think this might actually be the image of the night, so I'm glad I've kind of stuck around. The light is gone from Castle Mountain, but that pink is coming in the sky. I've got the reflection pool that everyone was fighting after, and let me show you my little composition here. So you might just about be able to see here that I've gone a bit further back in this reflection pool. So I've actually got the rocks right around the edge here at the front as well. Then we've got the reflection of Castle Mountain and all this pink coming in the sky on the left and the right. So I think right now this is looking pretty good. I'm going to focus stack this, focusing on the mountain itself, and then also focusing on the reflection, and then again one more focusing back here on the rocks in the foreground. So I think finally now we've had the best of the light here. It's 5:30, that's half an hour past sunset. So if you want to come and shoot here at Castle Mountain, I'd recommend getting here an hour before the sun comes down, especially if you want to shoot both locations and then stay for half an hour afterwards, because I think that shot I got at the end there is probably one of the best sunset shots I've had in a long time in the Canadian Rockies. But in the end, it was a very worthwhile visit, and it's definitely one of the best sunset locations in Banff. As always, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you on the next video. But in the meantime, be sure to download a Canadian Rockies photography location guide using the QR code on screen or the link in the description below. And go on, watch another video.